All right, everyone, more Saudi involvement here. In the wake of Trump claiming deception from the Saudi authorities, they've admitted now, yeah, Khashoggi's dead. No, he was murdered. But don't worry, Crown Prince Salman had nothing to do with it, despite the fact that he talked to him like 3 or 4 minutes before he died. Nothing to do with it. He just went in, he was being interrogated, he's like, hey, answer this question, blah, blah, blah. Leaves, and then inexplicably he gets fucking beaten to death or stabbed or whatever. Sorry about that, but it was rogue elements. No, we didn't give these guys permission to do that. No, it is actually possible, but you're overlooking a larger question maybe, which is why did the Saudi government decide that it was appropriate when the dude came to their consulate building to try to beat him into sense or whatever in the first place? Like if the Saudi government just beats journalists, doesn't explicitly want to kill them, but we just want to beat them into compliance. We just want to torture them a little so that they learn not to insult the crown prince or whatever. How is that a better situation than accidentally killing them in the process? I would say that's still pretty large-scale intimidation towards journalism, which is exactly the point. The idea is you maim or kill somebody in order to make an example of them so that others hopefully don't do the dissident thing anymore. Over here, of course, in the so-called civilized world, we just do things like, remember Tommy Robinson getting thrown in jail after a kangaroo court proceeding for, a month, and, the press not being able to talk to him or about him for several days. Limited access to a lawyer, no lawyer in the case of the first proceedings. Yeah, that's what we do. In the first world, we just intimidate journalists by trying to kick them off every communication platform and throwing them in jail. But we're not supposed to torture them, let alone kill them. That's barbaric. I do find some hypocrisy in some liberals when they don't understand this. Here in the United States, of course, journalists have had their reputations destroyed and their lives ruined. Remember when Obama was spying on several AP journalists? Remember when they were conducting surveillance on dissident journalists here in the United States back at in the beginning of the 2010s? I think it was late first term Obama. Yeah, you probably don't recall that because the media didn't want to talk about it too much because they were muzzled. That's the whole fucking point. It's the same fucking shit. The purpose is the same. The method is the only thing that's different. What's the difference between, hey, we took this dude, cut his head off, and hung him off an overpass as a lesson to other unruly journalists, and hey, we threw this person in a jail cell and let them get threatened and tried to poison him and stuff, Tommy Robinson style, plus we censored him all over the internet, made him a pariah by calling him a Nazi? Or what happens here? It's like, oh yeah, we had these guys shadowed by some G-men to intimidate them, and we got their press credentials repealed, and we got them fired, and now they have to do shitty freelance work. What's the fucking difference? Can I ask that? I mean, really, what's the difference between having your life ruined so that there's no quality of life at all anyway? Your fucking degree doesn't matter, fucking your job doesn't matter, your title doesn't matter. What's the difference between that and being depersoned entirely and being killed? Not a big difference after all now, is it? Other than the killed person can't even, I guess, fight back. But I mean, if you get depersoned by Silicon Valley, you can't anyway. It's why they've tried to kick people off multiple platforms at the same time. That's just a little bit of a rant about the hypocrisy I see. But here's the thing. The Saudi government has never been a friend of human rights. Can we stop pretending that, like Salman comes up, King Salman, not Crown Prince Salman, which is the same name, so it's confusing. His son is in his 40s or 50s, which is young by House of Saud leader standards, by the way. It's very young for them. And King Salman's I think he's 90 or something. He's a really old dude. He's apparently in great health for his age. Still has orgies and drug parties and everything, apparently. He still drinks booze all day, probably. Fucking crazy shit like that, which does happen in their palaces, trust me. He's like, no, I gave a stern talking to my son, but he wasn't involved. He had nothing to do with it. Yeah, he talked to him right before he died, but that's not suspicious at all, don't worry. The problem is it's going to be impossible to probably uncover evidence of actual wrongdoing that leads them to the House of Saud. That's the whole point. The whole point is they have a million fall guys that are willing to take a sentence for them, and then they'll use their diplomatic leverage to get the sentence shortened, to get them all sorts of special treatment in jail. Let's say that you do something for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. You killed someone for him. You fucking dumped one of his unruly daughters off a cliff. You fucking beat a dissident in the street. You get caught. you get sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you actually think, number one, you're serving 10 years, number two, you're not getting extreme deference while being there, and number three, basically, you're not in prison at all. Anyone that fucks with you probably dies too? Yeah, you think that you're going to be able to make them crack under those circumstances? They'll give some fall guy 10 years in prison. He'll serve 10 days or something. Oh yeah, we lodged a diplomatic complaint. The Turks will hand them back over to us. We'll put them in a Saudi prison. That's like house arrest. You're under house arrest in the palace you were in anyway, so you can't go outside of these walls for a couple years. Oh, you can, but you just pretend to sneak out. The guards will look the other way. Huh? We didn't see him leave. We didn't see him go to Qatar to fucking go to a casino or something. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is there will be limited accountability on all sides. The only one that appears to be taking it seriously here is Rand Paul. He's like, stop the arms deals. Oh, yes, Rand. I hate to say it, but that's utopian nonsense. Do you honestly believe that the Republicans, let alone most of the Democrats, are actually going to try to throttle such a lucrative system of arms deals as we have with Saudi Arabia? They're one of our best customers. You realize how much money we make? Last-gen weapons sold at basically face price because they have so much money. Hey, we'll make sure to keep the oil flowing so we don't throttle your economy as long as you keep giving us weapons to go after our neighbors with. Why do you think we ended up invading Iraq in the first place? It was on the trumped-up pretense of WMDs or 9/11 involvement, all that bullshit that we now know is totally fucking false. No, you know what it was? It was he was going to go toe-to-toe with the Saudi Arabians. He was getting a big dick about things. His military was getting a little bit too large and a little bit too firepower heavy, and the Saudi Arabians didn't like it. They realized he might align with the Shiite regimes. He might actually end up aligning with Iran just to curb stomp him and become lord of the entire Mesopotamian region. Well, we can't have that. We got to invade it. Tie it into the Osama bullshit, even though it has nothing in common with it. That's what Saudi Arabia did. There was Saudi government involvement in 9/11. There was Saudi government fingerprints all over the invasion of Iraq. There's Saudi government fingerprints on some of the shit that's happened in Syria. There's certainly Saudi fingerprints, bloody ones left in the soil in Yemen. So, yeah, a lot of accountability. Oh, over the course of 20 fucking years, when has Saudi Arabia been held accountable for anything, or sanctioned, or embargoed, or had anything done to them as a result of systemic human rights abuses, up to and including things like the liberals here? They didn't bat an eye when the Saudi Arabian government has no problem with like homosexuals or feminists getting thrown off buildings, or getting gang raped, or getting stoned, or whatever. They're like, oh no, that's fine. No, it's whataboutism when you point out that there are systemic problems culturally there with things that we take up as social issues here in the West. Because you're privileged enough to talk about them and you don't have to go over and live over under those conditions. No, I find this very, very funny. So yeah, Khashoggi's dead. Saudis have confirmed that. Are we going to get to see his maimed body or his pile of ashes? Yeah, probably not. That's about all. Peace out.